This video is going to cover the topic of triangle notations. Be sure the date and topic are at the top of the page. The essential question for this video is what vocabulary and notations are used to identify parts of a triangle? And when we think of triangles, we probably think we know everything that we need to know. We obviously know there are three sides of a triangle. We know therefore there are three angles, and most of us probably already know that the angles have a sum or add up to 180 degrees. But there is some other vocabulary that we need to know, and we also need to know how to talk about different parts of the triangle. First, we're going to take a look at how to name the lines and angles. So I have my triangle ABC, right? Those are the three letters that form this triangle. And if I want to name this segment of the triangle that I've marked in red, we would call this the line AB, right, with a little line on top to signal that it's a line and it goes from A to B. You could also use B to A. Right? That means, of course, this would be the line BC, and our third line, we'll make this green, this would be AC. We also want to be able to name the angles so that people know what we are referring. So we're going to look at angles as well. And so I have another triangle here. Again, it's just ABC, but this time we'll look at our angles. So this red angle here, right at the vertex where A is, we could name this angle, I'm going to make a little marker here, angle BAC, right, because it goes from B to A to C. You'll also sometimes just see it marked as labeled as angle A. Right? This angle here, right, could be angle ACB, right? The vertex is always in the corner of that combination. Or maybe it would just be angle C. And our last one up here would be angle ABC, perhaps, or maybe just angle B. So this gives us common language to describe a part of the triangle that we're referring to, right? Either a side or an angle. But we also have to have ways to communicate a little bit more about parts without confusion. Some vocabulary that you might hear or might choose to use when describing parts of triangles would be between, adjacent to, opposite to, and included. And I'm going to draw a picture of a triangle and write some sentences that will show you how we would use some of these terms. Once again, I'll start with just a basic triangle, ABC. So the first sentence that I'm going to fill in here with one of these terms says that in our triangle, angle A is blank, line AB and AC. So here's angle A, right? And angle B is, line AB is here and line AC is right there. And so what I notice is that that angle is in between, right? So I'm going to use the word between. Angle A is between line segments AB and AC. The next sentence looks at angle B, which is right here, and we're trying to figure out how it's related to this side AB. Well, it's not between AB and something else, right? It's just that one line that we're looking at. And so I'm going to say that it is adjacent to, it touches, right? It is next to it. And in fact, I also could have said angle B is adjacent to side BC, right? It also touches side BC, so it's adjacent to more than one line segment. Now I'm going to take a look at angle C, which is here, and I'm still going to talk about this line segment AB, but this time C is not touching, so it's not adjacent to AB. Instead, I would say that it is opposite. And that makes a lot of sense to me because it's kind of across from it, right? It doesn't touch it on any side or in any way. It's kind of on the other end, so we'd call that opposite. And lastly, I'm going to look one more time at this side AB. I'm looking a lot at that right now. Side AB, I can see is in between or touches angle A and angle B. So we're going to call that the included side. It's in between, it's included in between A and B. And that is that it's the side that links these two angles together. So that's a quick little example of how you might use these four vocabulary terms. And in addition to this language, there are also a few markings that are useful when talking about triangles. So on this triangle, I'm marking each of the three sides with three different kind of tick marks. These tick marks show how sides compare to one another. So these are all different numbers of markings, and that's because in this scalene triangle, all the sides are different lengths. I've also marked each of the different angles with a different number of little markings to show that those are also different measures. So when they have a different measurement, we would have a different number of tick marks or different marking. On this triangle, I marked two of the sides with the same markings. That means these two sides are equivalent or congruent. And that's true in an isosceles triangle. And in this isosceles triangle, there are also two angles that are the same, and I'm going to mark them to be identical as well. So there's one on that side, but then this one does not match, so that has a different number of markings. And in our last triangle, I'm going to mark all of the sides with the exact same marking. That means all sides are the same length, they're all congruent. And the same is true of these angles. I'm going to mark these to all be identical as well, with the same number of markings. And it's helpful for me as somebody who's giving you triangles to actually mark these sometimes, because when I'm drawing them by hand, as you can see on here, they're not always perfect, so you can tell what my intention was. My intention was for all three of these sides, for example, to be congruent. Now, there are other things that we will certainly be doing as we are working with triangles. So this should just be sort of a place for you to have some references when we go back to look at things. Obviously, there's much more to triangles than just knowing there are three sides, three angles, and then it adds up to 180 degrees. So we're going to continue to work with these, but make sure you have your notes and be ready to reference those notes as we move forward in class.